You're listening to Emerson Whitner's NXT Report on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Welcome to a 12-star edition of the NXT Audio Report. My name is Emerson Whitner. Thank you for listening. It is my last NXT report before the trip to Dallas. Next week I'll be en route to Dallas, so I won't be watching NXT. But of course I will be back in 2 weeks. I will be doing an audio report of NXT TakeOver on WrestlingOutsiders.com late Friday night, Saturday morning. So check that out. Plus, if you're in Dallas, my Bailey shirt's arrived. So if you're at TakeOver and you see a fat guy wearing a bright purple t-shirt, it's probably me. But let's talk about this week's NXT, shall we? Opened up with the returning Drifter, Elias Sampson, taking on the returning Johnny Gargano. Sampson came out first, and the crowd was completely dead for him. And then it was like the doors opened, and suddenly 500 people were there as Johnny Gargano came out, and the crowd exploded. Tom Phillips ruined his credibility in the first 3 minutes of the show by talking about how Sampson is undefeated. I guess we should ignore all those losses he had for years before he became a Drifter. Gargano was making his comeback and went for a slingshot maneuver, but Sampson caught him with a knee to the face, which looked really good and probably should have been the finish, but Sampson wasn't scheduled to win this one. Instead, Sampson went for a wacky move, but instead he got rolled up and pinned. Johnny Gargano, Johnny Wrestling, pinned Elias Sampson. However, I don't think Gargano's under contract yet. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, I actually don't know. However, this match wasn't about him. Yeah, he won, but Sampson beat the crap out of him afterwards. Sampson threw him out of the ring, slammed him back first into the metal post. He seemed poised to do something to him out on the ramp when Apollo Crews ran out for the save. Sampson backed down, and Apollo Crews now has something to do with his life. Rich Swann was up next, going one-on-one with the NXT Heavyweight Champion of the World, Finn Balor. The fans sang all night long for Rich Swann, and he didn't have all night long. He had about 5 minutes. I want to point out, Finn is really starting to feel like Neville did in his last 6 months in NXT. He feels like he's run its course. He's had his run here on the show, and it's time for him to move on. I don't know what the plans are. Who knows? Maybe he wins the TakeOver. I doubt it. Maybe he does. But I can't imagine him being on NXT that much longer. Swann got to look good here. At one point, Balor climbed to the middle rope for a what a maneuver, but Swann, standing flat-footed on the mat, leapt up and snapped off a Hurricanrana. But this was a showcase for the champion, ultimately. Balor won with the coup de grace and the Bloody Sunday DDT. The fans were chanting for Bloody Sunday as soon as Balor hit the coup de grace. They still haven't named it yet, but in case you don't know what it is, it kind of looks like the Impaler DDT meets a Brain Buster. Alex was backstage with Emma and Dana Brooke, who did a promo about Emma's match with Asuka. They seemed to tease tension as both talked about being injured by Asuka, but they were discussing who was injured the longest and who was injured the worst. Dana said that she should be beating Asuka tonight, but said that Emma, and I quote, will do the job. They had a video package with Shinsuke Nakamura flying to Stamford to meet with Triple H and Vince McMahon. Honestly, one of the oddest sights is seeing Shinsuke Nakamura and Vince McMahon standing next to each other. It just looked so wacky. And then they showed him arriving in Orlando at the Performance Center, walking around with Tensai, and meeting some of the guys. And in 9 days, it's Shinsuke Nakamura, It's Sami Zayn one-on-one, and you bet your sweet behind I'm looking forward to this one. Alexa Bliss versus Sarah Dobson. It's been a while since Alexa's had a match here on NXT. The last one I recall was that horrible match she had with Cameron back in January. Sarah wrestles elsewhere as Crazy Mary Dobson. I want to point out, Bliss has been with Blake and Murphy now for almost a year, but it doesn't seem like any of them have done anything of note since August when Blake and Murphy lost the tag team titles. Dobson did the Ric Flair flip over the top rope, climbed to the top for a cross body block. However, I don't know if Alexa was just out of place. I don't know if Dobson misjudged where Bliss actually was, but she came off with two knees right to the face of poor Alexa Bliss. The finish saw Blake and Murphy run interference, and Bliss won with the Sparkle Splash. Alex was now backstage with Samoa Joe, who, in 9 nights, it's Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, Part 2 for the NXT title. Alex started to ask Joe a question, but Joe just stormed off. Bull Dempsey then came out for his second attempt at a Loser Leaves Town match. You might recall he lost a Loser Leaves Town match about a month ago, but here he is back again. And instead he was jumped in the aisle by Samoa Joe. Joe choked him out, then got in the ring and destroyed Bull's scheduled opponent, Danny Burch. Joe screamed, I tell you, into the camera that he's coming for Finn Balor and will take his championship. We got an in-depth video package on American Alpha, which I want to point out is literally the first time in 3 or 4 years they've given Jason Jordan the chance to talk like really in-depth and really get over his background. They each talked about their successes and failures in amateur wrestling, specifically Gable talking about going to the 2012 Olympics and coming up short. This was an excellent video feature, and I can't see any way that they're not winning the titles. Someone's coming to NXT named Jose. The reason why I know this is because they did a video feature and just kept showing the words, "No way, Jose," over and 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 over again. Next week, it's Apollo Crews versus Alex Riley and Samoa Joe and Bull Dempsey in a loser goes to WrestleCon match. And by the way, I should point out, they said "No way, Jose" over and over and over and over and over again. Main event time, Asuka and Emma Part 2. They first sports entertained with each other back in December at TakeOver London and stole the show that night. To be fair, they don't have a very high bar to jump over to steal the show tonight, but they sure as heck did it. Emma took another beating from the number one contender, and that's something Emma is really good at. I don't know what it is about Emma, but she takes an Asuka beating better than anyone else. Asuka used a submission hold for every joint and limb. She broke out knee bars, leg locks, hammer locks, ankle locks, arm bars, and that was all just during the shine of the match. Emma took over, and that's where this match really got good, because these two ladies, they were hitting each other. They were using their bodies as weapons and throwing themselves at each other. We had a series of moves that started with an Asuka hip attack, including a spinning back fist, Emma knocking Asuka down with an elbow. Emma shoved Asuka into the ropes, and Asuka sprung back with another hip attack. Asuka put on a standing ankle lock and somehow turned a standing ankle lock into a German suplex before winning with the Asuka lock. So that's it for this week, and that does it for me until I'm back from Dallas. Next week is the go-home show for TakeOver. I haven't read the spoilers, but I'm going to bet you my left arm nothing really happens. But hey, check out the show anyway, because for the most part, it's a good show. But until I talk to you all again, thank you all for listening, and remember to stay your vitamins and take your prayers. Bye.
You're listening to Emerson Whitner's NXT Report on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.